Welcome to our archival analysis of Surah An-Naml. We're going to do a systematic verse-by-verse breakdown of the opening 6 verses, really getting into the weeds of the linguistic and theological details that our source commentary brings to light. All right, let's get right into it. Everything we're going to discuss today is grounded directly in this source document, a detailed contemporary exegesis. Our whole goal here is just to present its scholarly commentary as faithfully and clearly as possible, making sure we capture every single nuance from the original text. So, here's our game plan. We're going to move through these 6 sections together, step by step. We'll start with some essential context on the surah itself, and then we'll dive deep into each verse. By the end, you'll have a really comprehensive picture of this incredibly powerful opening. Now, before we even touch the verses themselves, our source makes a really important point. Context is everything. You have to understand where this chapter comes from and how it fits into the bigger picture to really grasp its message. Okay, so first things first, the title, An-Naml, which literally means the ant. And why the ant? Well, it's named after this unique and pretty famous story within the chapter about Prophet Solomon and his amazing interaction with a colony of ants. The source also classifies it as a Meccan surah, meaning it was revealed back in Mecca, a period when the focus was really on hammering home the core beliefs of the faith. Its placement is also super important. It comes right after Surah Ash-Shu'ara, the poets, and that's no accident. There's an immediate thematic link. Both of these chapters kick off with the exact same mysterious letters, ta, sin, which signals a deep connection, a shared focus on the nature of divine revelation. So, with that context set, let's turn to the very first verse. This is where the source commentary really starts to offer a detailed linguistic and theological breakdown, showing us how every single word was chosen with incredible precision and purpose. Ta-sin. تلك آيات القرآن وكتاب مبين. This is it. This is our focal point. Right after those opening letters, the verse makes this profound declaration about what this text actually is. And the commentary we're analyzing just dissects this with incredible detail. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Our source immediately flags something that you might just read right past. It's the word tilka. In Arabic, tilka means that or those. It's a pronoun you use for something that's far away. But wait a minute, the verses of the Quran were being revealed right there, in the moment. They were present. So why refer to something right in front of you with a word that implies distance? Well, as our source explains, this apparent contradiction isn't a mistake. It's a key that unlocks a much, much deeper meaning. So, how do we solve this little grammatical puzzle? Well, the author of our source text lays out 3 distinct scholarly interpretations. First, tilka is used to signify grandeur and majesty. The distance isn't physical, it's about status. It's like saying this book's rank is so sublime, so elevated, far above normal human speech that it's conceptually distant from us. The second interpretation is that it's a literal reference to the Quran's origin, the preserved tablet, Allah al-Mahfuz, which is a celestial reality that is in fact physically distant from our world. And a third view is that tilka points to the future, to all the prophecies and promises inside the Quran that at the moment of revelation were still distant in time but were guaranteed to happen. And it doesn't stop there. The verse uses 2 different terms, Al-Qur'an and Kitab Mubin. Now, you might think, isn't that just saying the same thing twice for emphasis? But no, not at all. The commentary stresses this is a crucial distinction. Al-Qur'an literally means the recitation, and it highlights the book's living, dynamic, spoken nature, a message that's meant to be heard and recited. On the other hand, Kitab Mubin means a clear book, or a luminous scripture. This refers to the text in its written, permanent, recorded form. It emphasizes its absolute clarity and its function as an undeniable record. So in one breath, this verse is telling us that these words are both a living, recited revelation and a clear, permanent scripture. Okay, so verse 1 establishes what the book is. The second verse builds on that perfectly by explaining what it does and, this is critical, who it does it for. This verse is all about its primary function. Hudan wa bushra lil mu'minin. You see, the Quran is defined here by 2 key roles. Huda, which is guidance, and bushra, which means good news or glad tidings. But the real linchpin, the part our source text spends a lot of time on, is that final phrase, lil mu'minin, for the believers. So let's unpack that. The commentary explains that even though the Quran's message is out there for everyone, its actual function as guidance and good news only gets activated for those who are open and receptive to it, the believers.
I mean, it makes sense, right? For someone who totally rejects it, it can't actually guide them. Huda is the act of showing the right way, like a light in the darkness. And Bushra is that incredible, joyful news it brings them, the promise of divine favor, of reward, of ultimate success. So the benefit is totally contingent on the state of the receiver's heart.
So that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? If this guidance is specifically for the believers, then who exactly are they? Well, the very next verse gives us the answer. And it's not some vague philosophical definition. It's a clear list of specific, actionable, and observable characteristics. الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون. Our source commentary identifies these three things as the non-negotiable pillars that define this community of believers. It's a definition based on both external actions and deep internal conviction.
And the analysis in our source text is incredibly precise about the language here. First, yuqimun as-salah. The word yuqimun doesn't just mean they pray. It comes from a root that means to make something stand upright, to establish. So this is about making prayer a firm foundational pillar in your life and community. Second, yutuna zakah. They give the zakat, the obligatory charity. And third, this is the big one, وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُقِيمُونَ. And of the hereafter, they are absolutely certain. The word used here is yaqeen, which is a level of certainty that goes way beyond just belief. It's a deep-seated, unshakable conviction that is as real to you as your own existence.
Our source also dedicates significant analysis to the term zakat. It makes it crystal clear that we're not talking about just any optional charity or sadaqah. No, zakat is a mandatory, calculated pillar of the faith with specific rules. It's framed as a right that the poor have over the wealth of those who are more fortunate. The commentary stresses its amazing dual function. It purifies the soul of the giver from greed, while at the same time it strengthens the bonds of society and helps those in need. It's presented as absolute, indispensable proof of true faith. Okay, so after clearly defining the believers and their characteristics, the text does a sharp pivot. It draws this stark, direct contrast by describing the state of mind and the ultimate fate of those who reject that single most crucial belief we just mentioned, the belief in the hereafter. These two verses lay out the direct spiritual opposites of the believers. The commentary here is fascinating because it focuses on the psychological and even metaphysical consequences of rejecting the afterlife. It's not just a theological disagreement. According to this, it fundamentally changes how a person perceives reality itself. And this slide just lays out the two paths so clearly. The source emphasizes this direct parallel. You have the believers whose actions, their prayer, their charity, are all guided by their certainty in what's to come. But for those who reject the hereafter, the verse says, we have made their deeds appealing to them. The commentary explains this as their short-sighted, worldly goals start to look beautiful and right in their own eyes. Without the moral compass of an afterlife, their own desires become their only guide, and this causes them to wander blindly. And the end result? It's a mirror opposite. Instead of guidance and good news, they face the worst of punishment and are called the greatest losers. And finally, this opening section concludes with one last shift in focus. It pulls back from the recipients of the message, the believers and disbelievers, and zooms right back in on the one delivering it, the Prophet Muhammad, and even more importantly, on the ultimate source of the message itself. وَإِنَّكَ لَتُلَقَّى الْقُرْآنَ مِنْ لَدُنْ حَكِيمٍ عَلِيمٍ. This verse is just this powerful, direct affirmation addressed straight to the prophet. Our source text presents this as the ultimate seal of authority on everything that was just stated. This is the divine guarantee. And notice, the verse doesn't just say the Qur'an is from God. It specifically invokes two of his attributes, Al-Hakim, the all-wise, and Al-Alim, the all-knowing. The commentary explains this choice is completely intentional. Al-Hakim means that every single command, law, and story in the Quran is perfectly wise. There is no flaw in its judgment. And Al-Alim means its contents are based on complete, perfect, infinite knowledge of everything, past, present, and future. So the point is, the message being received is guaranteed to be perfectly wise and perfectly true. So, to wrap this all up, our deep dive into the source text has shown us just how incredibly layered these first 6 verses really are. We've seen that the language is so precise that a single pronoun, like tilka, can open up huge doors of theological meaning. We've learned about the key distinction between the living, recited Quran and the clear, permanent, written book.
We've seen that true guidance is unlocked by a faith that's proven through action, prayer and zakat, and grounded in an unshakable certainty in the hereafter. And that certainty is the absolute pivot point. Rejecting it is what leads to wandering blindly. And finally, the entire message is sealed with the ultimate authority of its source, the all-wise, the all-knowing.
This detailed analysis leaves us with one final, profound question to really think about. If, as these verses argue, the main thing separating guidance from misguidance is certainty in an unseen reality, the hereafter, what does that tell us about the ultimate value and purpose of our actions here in this visible worldly life? It suggests that our perception of ultimate reality is the very thing that gives our present actions their true meaning, and that is a thought worth pondering.